Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Do I look happy? That's because it's my vacation and I don't have to make car videos. And yet, here we are. I'm Arnold, this is a real short car review, and that is the reason that I'm making this video. It's the Mazda CX-30 SkyActiv-X. And last year I already did a real life car review on this car, but that had the SkyActiv-G engine. I don't want to make an in-depth video about the SkyActiv-X technology, but I took this car with me on my vacation and I gained some valuable insights that I wanted to share. So if you're contemplating buying a CX-30 and you're not sure if you have to get the SkyActiv-G or X engine, I hope this video will be helpful for you to make that buying decision. So without any further ado, let's open up the hood and have a quick walkthrough on what this engine is and what it isn't. So I've already opened up the hood. I only brought one camera today. So as you can see, there is a secondary hood under there. That's noise insulation. And this engine has always been the holy grail that no car manufacturer was able to figure out and to put in production. As said, this is the world's first and only compression ignition engine. But it does have spark plugs, and why would it have spark plugs if it has compression ignition? Well, the reason is simple. The basic theory of compression ignition is that you put air-fuel mixture through such a high compression that it is about to explode. That does happen in normal engines, and then it's called engine knock, and that's what you want to avoid. Now, the thing is, Mazda compresses the air mixture to the brink of exploding, but then uses a small explosion, a small combustion triggered by a spark plug to ignite the entire mixture in the cylinders. And that spark plug ignition is necessary to time it, but the spark plug ignition creates only a very small explosion that normally wouldn't push the piston down from top dead center to bottom dead center, but it does trigger an explosion in the rest of the cylinder, the very high compressed air fuel mixture. And if you look down there, you can see the compressor is belt driven. This is a highly complex engine. As said, if you want to know more about this engine, go watch Drive for Answers video. But the important stats of this engine is it's a 4-cylinder 2-liter engine, and it pushes out 186 horsepower versus 140 horsepower of the SkyActiv-G engine. But as said in that video on the SkyActiv-G, I had the impression that that engine makes a lot more power than 140, and I can tell you this engine does also make a lot more power than the 186 horsepower that Mazda states in the brochure. I think it's about 200 horsepower. I'll put some figures in screen and I will talk about fuel consumption, because fuel consumption is the main reason that car manufacturers has always strived to achieve or to build a compression ignition engine. I did a 2,500 kilometer trip, of which I had about 1800 kilometers on the German Autobahn with according speeds, so on average 130 to 140 kilometers. Even then, with my family in the car at Autobahn speeds, the fuel consumption number was 5.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which I think is an amazing achievement for a non-hybrid car. So the compression ignition technology really works. It's a powerful engine, and 2, it's very fuel efficient, so it's really worthwhile. But is this engine worthwhile buying over the SkyActiv-G engine? If you look at cost alone, it's about 2,000 euros more, and what you get for that 2,000 euros over the SkyActiv-G is a lot more technology. A unique engine, it works really well, more power, better fuel economy, but from a driver's perspective, is it worth it? Now, that's where I have some thoughts and experience that I wanted to share with you. Alrighty folks, we're on our way, and the first thing I want to talk about is the HVAC system, and especially the air conditioner. In every Mazda review I mentioned how good the HVAC system is, but most of the times I drove the car in colder weather. Now we're experiencing a heat wave, and last week we had temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, which are extreme for Europe. But the air conditioning in this car is so powerful and so fast to cool down the cabin that it's fantastic. It's the best that I ever experienced. So kudos to Mazda for building such great HVAC systems. That being said, I want to talk about the SkyActiv-X engine. And as I said, I drove a lot on the Autobahn at 130 kilometers an hour on average. And at that speed range and in that engine rev range, the SkyActiv-X actually doesn't provide any benefit in comparison with the SkyActiv-G engine. It is above 3000 RPM where this engine is significantly more powerful. But for most countries where you do have a speed limit, it doesn't make sense to get the SkyActiv-X. This engine really excels above the 3000 RPM rev range, and I did a lot of mountain passes driving. I drove the 3 passes in Switzerland, which was fantastic. I think not even there is where you can pull the benefits from the extra 40-50 horsepower that the X version of the SkyActiv engine has to offer. Another thing that I want to mention is that this car is fitted with an automatic gearbox, and that really pushes down on the performance. It is the exact same gearbox as in the SkyActiv-G version, but it doesn't really work well with the SkyActiv-X engine. It nerves the performance a little bit. In this car, it's too slow to respond to throttle inputs. If you have this transmission with the SkyActiv-G, it's also not faster, but the SkyActiv-G engine has significantly more torque in the lower rev range, and that's where this engine lacks. This engine really has to make revs above, let's go 2.5, 3000 RPM. That's the big divider. That's where the SkyActiv-X engine starts to excel. And I think if you do want to get this engine and you want an engaging car to drive, then you should get the X version, but with a 6-speed manual transmission. That's when this engine really comes to life. And I think for 90% of the buyers of the CX-30, the SkyActiv-G is more than plenty for your driving needs. Even on faster sections of the Autobahn, the SkyActiv-G can come along very well with traffic because of its torque. And at real high speeds, above 160, is where the SkyActiv-X engine is noticeably more powerful than the 2.5 liter version. And I have driven this car before with the SkyActiv-X version many years ago. I mean, the CX-30 is about 7 years in production now, and it was the very first car to drive with this compression ignition engine, and I was absolutely impressed by the technology, and I still am. But you can save yourself 2,000 euros if you ask me, because the SkyActiv-G engine is just so good in all its honesty and all its simplicity. There is, however, a side note for both versions of the car. You can tell that this car is coming of age. It's now 7 years in production, I believe, and other manufacturers, if you have comparable cars from Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, maybe completely different car, but the suspension technology in those cars has developed, and there is an advantage in those cars over the Mazda suspension setup. It moves a lot on the suspension, and I noticed this on mountain passes where you have some nice hairpins, tight curves, or some swooping bends. The car really has a significant amount of body roll. And there is a little bit of bump steer. The steering is precise, and I can position the car exactly where I want, but I do have to fight the body roll a little bit, and there is a slight amount of bump steer. And it's odd to say that some Toyotas are better in that respect than this Mazda. So there's that. And coming to think of it, and I thought of this last week, I think the one Mazda that really could use the SkyActiv-X engine is actually the MX-5, because the engine is powerful and you really have to work with the engine and keep it in revs, and that's where the engine really starts to come alive. And I will say this, every now and then when you have to overtake or when you pull the pedal to the metal, as I'll do now, it winds out from 5,000 RPM, 6,000 RPM, all the way to the red line, and the car is so powerful. And I think that performance, that engine characteristic would suit the MX-5 really, really well. So maybe we'll see in the future if Mazda will put the SkyActiv-X engine in other models than the CX-30 and Mazda 3. So what are my final thoughts? Well, that €2,000 on average that the SkyActiv-X costs over the SkyActiv-G is worth its money. You get a whole lot of technology for that money, and it really is unique, and it's proven to be a very reliable engine technology. But this engine only works for people with a sportier driving style that do faster driving and do want an engaging car to drive. Those people get the SkyActiv-X with manual transmission. For all other people, the 2.5 liter SkyActiv-G will do the job just fine, albeit with manual transmission or with an automatic transmission. Basically, that's the engine to get. So there's that. I hope you liked following me along. I hope you found this video helpful. If you consider buying a CX-30, let me know down below in the comment section. Hey, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on the next one. Bye.